Welcome to ArieVive Studios talk show and podcast hosted by Victory Lyric. Get ready to be inspired to be all you were called and created to be. Join us as we showcase nationwide artisans and their unique stories. This is your opportunity to explore creativity with diverse crafts, recipes, and tutorials with practical tips for unleashing your artistic side. Let's get ready for spiritual upliftment, healing stories, miracles, and divine goodness. Get ready for an amazing segment of ArieVive Studios talk show and podcast with host Victory Lyric.
Welcome to ArieVive Studios, and this is your host, Victory Lyric. Today, we are super excited for a very fun interview. We have radio show host KVNE's Mike Harper. And Mike, why don't you go ahead and, tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, thank you, Victory. It's very nice to be here. This is fun for me. I'm usually on the other side of the interview microphone. So have somebody ask me about me is very different, but it's something I welcome. I have been in radio for most of my life. I started when I was in my young 30s, and it's been at the same station, which is kind of rare. But I came up in Cincinnati, always interested in radio. Moved to Shreveport in the 80s and worked in the factory. And about 1989, I came to Tyler to work for KVNE. So I've been there 35 years.
Okay, so you're out in East Texas for our viewers all over the country. Yeah. Awesome. And so tell us a little bit about your radio show host career. How did you get interested in that? How did that start?
When I was a kid in the 60s, the Beatlemania had hit, and so the radio was pretty much what we had. And I became very in tune to the radio and how it was hosted, and some of the disc jockeys became kind of heroes for me, even through the 70s and the classic rock era. And it's just something that I was always wanted to do. And so well into my 20s and into my 30s, I still hadn't done it yet. And I finally got a chance to do it at a Christian radio station not long after I became a Christian. Oh, wow. My wife said, there's this Christian station. Why don't you go out there and interview? And volunteer. Initially, I was just going to volunteer, and we lived in Shreveport at the time and like 100 miles away. So I started off going out there on Saturdays to volunteer, but it wasn't long, almost on the spot, I got hired as a part-time announcer. So radio has always been something I've been interested in, the on-air part of it, not very technical, so that side of it I don't know. But I've been very happy to do that ever since.
Oh, that's wonderful. So you're on a Christian radio station now?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And so tell us a little bit about what you do there.
KVNA is a listener-funded radio station. It is commercial-free, and so we're blessed in that way. We don't have to take commercial ads to fund the radio station. It's all done by listener support, which is pretty amazing when I think how God has used our community to come together and provide for the stations. Just music. I'm on a morning show with a co-host. My friend Carrie Parsons and I have been doing the mornings together for 16 years now, which is also kind of rare. Radio tends to have kind of a revolving door. But we've had the blessing to be able to continue for all these years. And so we come in, I come in at 5 and kind of get things going. She comes in during that hour and starts getting some of the pre-recorded segments produced, and we kind of plan the show. And at 6 o'clock, we come on together. We talk every 2 songs for maybe a minute, and that winds up being about 7 or 8 times an hour between the songs. And we go all the way to 10 o'clock. And that's the first half of our day. So I'll tell people I do the morning show, and they'll say, well, when are you on? And I say, well, I'm on from 5 a.m. till 10 a.m. And somebody will say, oh, well, I don't get up that early. I said, come on, you're not up by 10 o'clock? We're on the whole time. You may not catch the beginning, but surely you can catch the end. So that's been kind of the pattern for a very long time now. And KVNE has just grown leaps and bounds, and God has blessed it. It was pretty humble beginnings, and now we've been the #1 station in East Texas for a few years now.
Oh,
And,
wonderful.
it blows my mind, to be quite honest about it. When I think of where we came from, and that I could be a part of that, it's pretty astounding. We have quite a team. Like I said, I'm the on-air guy. There's a lot of things about radio I don't know. We have people who do, and some pretty quality people to make all that happen. So I just show up every day and try not to spill anything, Victory. That's what I do. I try not to mess it up.
That's awesome. So tell us a little bit, especially our viewers who are thinking about a similar dream. Maybe they dream of something like this, like a podcast or talk show, to be on the radio. What would you tell a young person, considering this, or an old person like me?
Oh, you got nothing on me, Victory. But yeah, for young people and old people alike, as you can imagine, radio was a lot different in the late 80s when I started. We didn't have near the technology we have today. Used to have somebody in the building all the time. We don't have to anymore. We have automation for overnight. By the way, KVNE is one of the only stations left that still has live announcers all day during the week. So we're like 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. We still have live studio DJs. Most stations don't. Most of them are network now, et cetera. So with all that groundwork, for somebody who is interested in radio specifically, what I did is I just volunteered. I just show up and be available to do anything. Now, since radio isn't the only game in town anymore, there are a lot of other ways that you can express yourself and you can work your craft. We've got YouTube and we've got online podcasts and things. And really what it comes down to is just work. Just do it. You read about doing it. You can take classes. You can plan on doing it. But at some level, you have to just start doing it. Start putting out content. Plan a show. Find somebody who knows how to do the technical side of it and start doing it. And the more you do it, the more you'll get exposed, and people will start to flock toward you. It's the same with writing. You just have to write if you want to be a writer. And a lot of what radio hosting has to do with is writing content, gathering content, editing content. So you just start doing that. And like yourself, you've got a platform here on your show that you just start putting out the information and the content and make it attractive and relevant, and the viewers will come.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that for me, in order to produce something that I enjoyed putting out there, I needed to be able to have a heart behind it. Like for our show, it's helping others to become all they were called and created to be. So having that lens of, which to look through for the show and the guest and to talk with the guest about is very helpful. Do you all have, a similar mission?
Absolutely. Our encouragement media mission is to glorify God and to encourage people, to point people to Jesus, to connect our community. All these things together, everything goes through that lens, that grid, as you say. And so on our on-air content, whether that's our on-air hosts, the music, it all has to kind of be filtered through that. Now, I will say in the morning show, we allow some lightheartedness to enter in, so we do laugh a lot. We're careful to keep it family friendly, and something that eventually is a positive message that ultimately points us to Jesus, the creator of everything, including
laughter, right? I was thinking the same thing. It's like, I sometimes think of the humor of God and the way that, if we were created that way and we like to laugh, of course he does as well. And so I think a lot of people tend to look at God through a lens of, an angry, monster, so to speak, from the Old Testament, the way that some preachers used to preach, but God is a joyful, loving, spirit that is much like, the joyful, loving moments of our lives, because we were created in his image. So I agree with you. Absolutely. Oh, well, thank you. I love that.
Yeah.
So if you were to let any of our viewers kind of know about something, hard that you have gone through in the process of growing in your career, to kind of help keep us on track, what
Yeah.
what would be your advice?
There are a number of times when, in radio, for example, in the early days, it was hard for us to pay the bills. Sometimes, when I took the job, it was half the price, half the salary I was making at the factory. So my wife went back to work, and we gathered our resources and were able to provide for our family with God's help. But there were some lean times. The station didn't have the listenership that it does now. There was even one time when our tower actually fell. It was just structurally unsound, and we were off the air for a good deal of time. And you can't help but wonder, gee, is this it? Is it over? But God sustained us, and we were able to rebuild. And so there were times like that. I also play music, play in a band, and I play the drums in a classic rock band. I've done that all my life. So there was a point as a young man growing up, I thought that might be what I would do for a living. That would be my full-time job. Well, life happened, and I got married and started a family, and I got a day job. And next thing I know, I was that dream wasn't happening, and I got a little discouraged in my early 20s about that, about not being a drummer. Well, again, God provided, and I've been able to continue playing pretty much solid for about 55 years now. I'm very seldom have I not been involved in some sort of a music group, whether at church or whether in a classic rock band. So he's given me a lot of grace in that area and mercy. So I'm grateful for those times. I would say for those who are struggling, without sounding cliche, hopefully this too will pass. It's these things tend to work themselves out if you hang in there. You don't allow yourself to get too despondent or don't do anything rash. A lot of times just waiting it out, praying about it. Something will turn up. Your course will change. You'll get some unexpected blessing that you don't even know is a blessing maybe at first. Sometimes the hardest times are the times where we wind up being closest to God. So yeah, try not to get too down when you get frustrated or your plans fall through. God has ways of blessing us through the back door.
I agree with that. And I was thinking about something that you had said about you had this job offer and your wife, had to go and work. Clearly, the two of you had a purpose in front of you. I mean, your purpose being, to go onto radio, I would assume, but keeping our why in front of us, the why we're doing something, is oftentimes, I think, what helps stay the course.
Yeah, we had become Christians in the mid 80s. And it was one of those things where we were raised in church, but we never really made a personal commitment. In fact, I didn't even know about that part of it. The church that I attended was a good place, but the personal dedication part of the response was not something that was emphasized. Well, we found that when we got to Shreveport, somebody introduced us to Jesus, to whom we confess our sins and ask for forgiveness and ask to come into our heart for our personal relationship. It changes when then we are saved. It's not something I was familiar with. Lois and I both came to that understanding in our 20s. And it wasn't long after that we discovered this Christian radio station. So that's when Lois said, well, why don't you volunteer out there? And as I mentioned, I got a part-time job pretty quickly. And it wasn't long after that I was offered a full-time job. And she has never been anything but supportive of that. I made it pretty clear that I wasn't satisfied working in an auto assembly plant. I was grateful for the pay. It was a good paying job with benefits, but I was not good at it, Victory. I was, you don't want to put tools in my hand. I was dangerous to myself and those around me. So, I got a chance to get out of there.
Yeah.
I was grateful for that chance.
Yeah, it wasn't authentic to who you were. So
Very true. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, well, I love that. Well, thank you so much for sharing your inspiration story. Mike is going to teach you guys a little bit about drumming. So I am super excited about that.
Hi, it's Mike with a fun fill I call the Diggity Boom. You can read about it right here in this book called Drumming for Drummies. Look, I happen to have one right here. The Diggity Boom is just how it sounds. Diggity Boom. It's 4 strokes. Diggity Boom. 4 strokes, right, right, and a bass. Right, right, and a bass. Any drum will do. Right, right, bass. Right, right, bass. Use a bass and a right-left bass. If you want to do them repeatedly, that's a little bit easier. That way, you just got your bass drum going. Request for Get Back. Ringo does it left, right. Left, right. He's left-handed. I don't know if that makes any difference. Easier for me to make my right hand the driving force and play all the 8th notes there. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Add the left hand. Time to build a fill based on 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 notes within each number, so it's counted 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a. These little greater than signs, these little fast forward signs are accents. That's where we're going to hit the note harder. 1 and 2 and 4. 1 and 4. 1 and 4. 1
So we have a final segment of the show. This is my favorite segment of the show. It is our You Would Not Believe story.
You would not believe story. I've got one.
Try me, Mike. Go for it.
I did make reference to the fact that I worked at a General Motors assembly plant, and I was grateful yet somewhat downcast. This was my lot in life, that I was not going to be able to fulfill the dream that I had of being in music or radio or both. And when Lois gave me the idea of let's volunteer at this radio station, and it might at least exercise that muscle a little bit. And as I mentioned, I got hired pretty much on the spot for a part-time position. And then within that first few months, I got offered a full-time position. Well, this was a dream come true, but there was one caveat, and that was it only paid about half what I was making at the factory, and not nearly the benefits, et cetera. So it would be a huge cut in pay. And so I was a pretty brand new Christian. I'd been a Christian maybe 3 years. And I'd always heard about going into your prayer closet. And I didn't know that necessarily didn't have to be literal. I thought you literally had to do that. Now you can do it anywhere, right? But I went into a closet, and I spent a lot of time in a closet, and boy, did my mind wander. But I kept bringing it back and saying, God, I need help. And this is a major life change for me, potentially. And everything kept coming back to, this is your heart. This is where your gifts lie. This is what you've always wanted to do. I can use you here. Trust me.
Okay.
Okay. So I went to God first, and then I went to Lois, right? That's the correct order. Yeah. So I said, God says, no, I went to Lois. I said, what do you think? I mean, I've got this opportunity. And she said, I want you to go. And when she said go, it's like the Rocky theme started. I just started running to Tyler. We picked up our bags and moved to Beverly. You know, we had four, we were raising four kids. We moved to Tyler. Lois went back to work as a dental assistant. That was her trade that she took in school. And we started working at the radio station in full-time ministry. Now, it's a bit of a cliche. Everybody's really in full-time ministry if you love the Lord, but you know what I mean. It was my full-time job to work at the radio station. And that was a gift from God that I never saw coming. And I would hope that would be an encouragement to you, that if you have a dream, if you feel a call, sometimes it's hard to know if God's speaking to you or if that's your selfish motives, whatever. Go to the closet if you have to, and work it out with God. Have that whole go round and round with him, and let him talk to you, and trust him at some level. But talk to your wife, do the things, or your husband, do the pertinent things that are important. But that was a life changer, and nothing has been the same since. It really did redirect the path of our lives, and I'm so grateful for it.
You did something amazing, which is that of saying yes to God. You know, God doesn't always ask us to do something or call us to do something that feels easy to us or comfortable to us. And that was clearly not comfortable financially, but maybe not also comfortable, like to step out there and put yourself out there on a radio,
Yeah,
But,
I had people tell me I was crazy. Yeah.
Right? And I think that's oftentimes how I know it's God and not myself, because if it was myself, I'd be looking for something that made me feel particularly comfortable. But God does not ask us to do comfortable things. He's growing us. He sees who we're already made to be, how amazing we already are, way before we can see it, because he made us.
Yeah, I'm so thankful for that. Thank you for sharing that. That really paints a beautiful picture of it. It's very true.
Well, wonderful. I'm so glad that we got to be here with you today. And as we're kind of coming to a close, is there anything else on your heart that you want to share with our viewers, as they kind of step out in their journey with the Lord?
Yeah. Well, thank you for allowing me the time to share. I would say, looking back, the exciting opportunities that God has given me, and I give him credit for that and the praise. If there was one thing I wish I had known, or had maybe been urged to do, is whatever your occupation is, or your calling, your ministry, is that to make sure that your family is very much a part of that, and to prioritize that. It's easy to get caught up in work and not be home. And I wish somebody had told me that a little bit earlier. That would have changed some things too. I look back and kind of think I could have been home more often than I was. Don't want to call it a regret as much as a perspective that maybe somebody can benefit from.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, to make that part of the plan from the beginning. How do I work? How do I manage my time?
Yeah, because the kids are only there for, it seems like forever when they're there, but in retrospect, it's really just a season. It's 15, 20 years, and then that's over, and that was your chance. And so you don't want to let that slip by. It's hard, but you got to hang. You might have to put off a dream or two until you get them out the door, but they need to be first.
That's wonderful. Yeah. That word season has been on my heart a lot lately, because I've been thinking about, all the different people I've interviewed and some of the moments that people are walking through. And I think sometimes when you're in the middle of a struggle, you forget that this might be just a season. It's a season of growth. It's a season of change, but it's not a forever necessarily. And when you feel like it's a forever, it can be overwhelming.
Yeah, God is so sovereign, if I could use a Christianese, but he's so solid that you can always count on. I like what Peter said, Lord, where are we going to go? You're the one with the words of life. So when I'm at my wit's end, when I have no other alternative, of course I'm going to go to the Lord, because he's the foundation, and he provides, and he's sometimes subtle, and sometimes he's quiet, but you can count on him. He's faithful.
Yes, agreed. And I think that these moments, these seasons, so to speak, when they feel overwhelming, it's just nice to know that it's okay to be present and to enjoy that season, even though that's not where you want to end up. I mean, even at a manufacturing plant or whatever, you didn't necessarily want to be there, but it was a season, and we can learn to be present in the moment, even if it's not our forever or it's not our dream.
Good word.
We'll grow.
Pardon?
I think we'll grow more, learning in that season and being more present, as opposed to just always looking at where we're headed.
Yeah. And again, in retrospect, I can be grateful for that time, in that I made some great relationships. In fact, the guy who literally led me to the Lord was there at GM Shreveport.
Wow.
Right there on the assembly line. So
that's awesome.
Him and several others that became brothers in Christ for me. My very early days of walking in the faith was very valuable to me, and I look back fondly on it now. Maybe didn't realize how great it was at the time, although we did have some good times.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think nothing is ever wasted, and the Lord in the Word says that these things are not wasted, and so I love that he uses all the things and all the parts, and clearly you needed that time and those gentlemen. So wonderful. We never know what it is that we're walking through that's preparing us for, that those things that God called and created us to do and be. So
agreed.
Well, I love having you here today. And
my pleasure.
You did provide an email address, but if you don't mind, letting them know one more time what the email address is, where they can get a hold of you if they want to, reach out at all.
Yeah, I love to correspond. It's KVNE, just like the radio station says there at the bottom of the screen. It's KVNE Mike at yahoo.com.
Awesome. Well, Mike, thank you so much for being here today. I really just enjoy your energy and your joy in your life. And I am so excited that we got to chat today. And to all of our viewers, thank you so much for being here. And we look forward to next week for another wonderful show.
Thanks for tuning in to the ArieVive Studios talk show and podcast hosted by Victory Lyric. It's our goal to inspire you to be all you were called and created to be. Join us next week as we showcase nationwide artisans and their unique stories. It's your opportunity to explore creativity with diverse crafts, recipes, and tutorials with practical tips for unleashing your artistic side. So until next week, God bless from your friends at the ArieVive Studios talk show and podcast and your host, Victory Lyric.